Richard Hall, a businessman, sits in his office at his rich espresso-stained desk. The room is dark except for the glow of the computer screen casting shadows on his pale, thin face. A desktop lamp illuminates his workspace covered with files and binders. He incessantly types at his computer, clickety, clack into the night. Then, a creak followed by a subtle thump comes from just outside his office door. He raises his head and sits straight up in silence, listening, waiting. He tilts his head just a bit. He hears something. Richard's face twisted into a mischievous grin. "Conrad? Is that you?" The man's voice cuts through the quiet, still office. He inhales deeply. The essence of the room fills his distended nostrils. He holds it for a brief moment. "Ah, yes. Conrad Eldritch. Why do you lurk in the shadows?" He pushes his chair back from the desk. His face is confident, but his posture is alert and ready. Conrad Eldritch, Jason's dad, steps into the office from his dark concealment. 6'2", dark hair and fit. His broad shoulders filled his brown leather jacket. A sheathed machete sat strapped on his hip. His hardened face gleamed at Richard. Richard stares back at him. Their eyes locked on one another like two stags in a rut. Richard tilts his head, never breaking eye contact. "My debt to you is paid, Conrad. I owe you nothing." Conrad shakes his head. "You owe me everything. I spared your life on 2 conditions. 1, you don't feed on the innocent. And 2, you give me information when I need it." Richard wraps his fingers over the rounded edges of the armrest. His fingers crack and pop as they grow longer and longer. His fingernails extend from clean-cut and trim to razor-sharp black daggers. The man's cheeks sink into his head as his eyes glaze over to pure frost white. Conrad does not move nor speak. He just watches as the transformation unfolds in front of him. Richard, now a creature, abruptly stands from his chair with such force it smashes against the wall behind him. The creature speaks with a much lower tone now, almost a growl. Its fangs are now apparent when it speaks. "You should not have come here, Conrad." Conrad lets out a sigh of boredom. "You should probably save the show for the ladies." The creature snarls with a low, rumbling growl. "Why are you here, Conrad?" Conrad takes a couple of steps forward and looks the beast in its stark white eyes. "I guess I just missed your charming smile and sunny disposition." The creature hunches its back and growls a low rumble. It flares its clawed hands out to its side like switchblades and starts to flank Conrad. Conrad reaches to his back under his jacket, pulling out a Colt 45 and points it at the creature. "Hey, Richard, how about you put away the claws and the fangs and we just have a polite conversation?" Richard slowly sidesteps, still trying to get a vantage point on Conrad. "No, I think not. Maybe tonight is the night I eat your spleen." Conrad keeps his 45 locked on Richard with steady hands, squints his eyes and cocks his head slightly. "Really, Richard? My spleen. Why not my heart or liver? It rolls off the tongue better. It gives it a more dramatic effect." Richard stops and lowers his stance, crouching as if ready to pounce. His arms flared off to his sides, his long fingers curled, as his black claws glistened in the dim light. There he is, the great Conrad Eldritch, always confident, always something wise to say. "The truth is, you reek of fear. I smell it all over you. I think the taste of your blood might help cover your stench." Conrad doesn't say a word. He slowly shakes his head to indicate to Richard this isn't how he wants it to go down. The plea goes unanswered. Richard roars and lunges at Conrad, fangs and claws tearing towards him. Conrad fires 3 shots, all striking Richard's chest. Black blood spatters the floor below him, but barely slows him down. Richard slashes at Conrad's torso, then head, each strike narrowly missed. Conrad strikes Richard in the temple with the butt of his gun, slips behind him, and delivers another shot point blank to the back of Richard's head. Black blood and bone spays on the wall as Richard falls face first onto the floor. Conrad keeps his gun pointed at Richard. The creature's body twists and jerks as a pool of black blood seeps onto the floor. Richard tries to push himself back up off the floor, but collapses with a hard thud. Conrad uses his foot to roll Richard onto his back while keeping his .45 locked on him. Richard lets out a gurgled breath and spits blood. His eyes turn from the soul's white back to dark blue. His bones pop and crack as his shape falls back to human. The black blood seeping from the hole in his head starts to run crimson red as the hole starts to close. Richard grabs his head with both hands and lets out a moan of agony. "You shot me in the head." Conrad stares at him with empty eyes. For a moment, then his face lightens. "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Yours was a hole in your head." Richard sits up on the floor still holding his head and lets out a sigh. "You know, I'm going to kill you someday." Conrad cracks a smile. "Not if I kill you first." Conrad tucks his .45 back into his pants and extends a hand to help Richard off the floor. Richard's eyes scans over the office at all the black blood that had now turned red and the hole in the wall where his chair had smashed into. "I don't suppose you're going to help me clean this up?" Conrad shakes his head. "Not a chance." Richard sits on his desk and rubs his head while moaning. "What do you want, Conrad?" Richard said with a snap. Conrad's face turns grave. "It's about Jesisca, my son's fiance. She's missing. Have you heard anything?" Richard shakes his head. "No, I'm sorry to say you shot me in the head for absolutely nothing." Conrad's brow raises. "No, I shot you in the head because you were coming at me like a rabid animal." Richard stands up and stumbles a bit. "So I'm assuming your late bloomer son has finally been cursed with the sight." A brief puzzlement crosses Conrad's face. "Why would you say that?" Richard's voice fills with annoyance. "Come on, Conrad. Did you really think it was going to suddenly skip a generation? Did you?" Conrad shakes his head. "I don't know. My sight started when I was a teenager. I separated myself from him and his mother in hopes that it wouldn't follow." Richard's face crickles up. "Are these the lies you tell yourself? You separated yourself from them because you were afraid. You can't separate from your cursed blood. When was the last time the sight skipped a male in your family? Never, right? You're a Venator Umbrarum, a hunter of shadows. You can't get away from that." An unsettling quiet falls over the room as Conrad contemplates Richard's words. Richard clears his throat. "You want to find your son's fiancé. You want to help them. Go. Go be with them and speak the truth. Teach him. He's coming in late in the game." Conrad nods and lets out a held breath. "I'm sorry I shot you in the head." Richard nods back. "I'm sorry I was going to eat your spleen. Now I've got a mess to clean up and you have a past to fix." Richard pats Conrad on the shoulder. "I'll kill you the next time I see you." Conrad pats him back and smirks. Like, wise. Conrad walks away as confused as ever by their frenemy relationship. One day, one of them really would end up killing the other, but until then, it seems to work.